I'm reading from my book, Fighting for Your Destiny. And I'm going to start with the introduction. I initially intended to make a study of the life of Joseph, for he seems to be a splendid, rather than typical example of somebody who has triumphed over unbelievable adversity, persecution, and accusation to achieve unprecedented status and position during his lifetime. I must stress Joseph is not the norm, but his story certainly shows what is achievable when God is allowed free access in the lives of mere mortals. It is obvious that he did not have the same birth advantages as Jesus, in that Gabriel did not appear to his mother to say, "The Holy Ghost shall come upon thee, and the power of the highest shall overshadow thee. Therefore also that holy thing which shall be born of thee shall be called the Son of God." That's from Luke 1:35. He was born as human as you or me. Yet, considering his background and family, we were left with no excuse for the pathetic advancements we make in our own spiritual walks with God. But how did he do it? DNA plays a huge part in our walk with God. Certain aspects of our DNA should be cultivated, whereas others should be ruthlessly put to death and stamped out completely. Although God, through Moses, gave the commandments 400 years after Joseph was born, his standards have always been the same. If man's conscience hadn't been so hard, then it would not have been necessary for God to write his laws down on tablets of stone. He probably had to write them on stone as a prophetic visual aid to emphasize to us all how hard-hearted and stone-like the human race, without the fear of God, could become. "For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me." That's Exodus 20, verse 5. Exodus 34, verse 7 says this, "Keeping mercy for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgression and sin, and that will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, and upon the children's children unto the third and fourth generation." Who are we, and what is our DNA? You know what DNA is, don't you? DNA is a long molecule that contains each person's unique genetic code. It holds the instructions for building the proteins that are essential for our bodies to function. At conception, we get 23 chromosomes from our father and 23 from our mother, which joins to make this one long molecule of 46 chromosomes. There is so much information, all written in code, that each of us has enough DNA to reach here to the sun and back more than 300 times. All this information is your book of life. Well, I don't know whether those facts are actually true, but that's what I've written. This book contains the life you are going to live, what you will look like, how tall you will be, what colour you will be, how many hairs you will have on your head. Not only that, but what characteristics you will have. And I believe it also contains the destiny God has purposed for you. A good way to be aware of what is potentially in us is to look at the character traits of our forefathers and foremothers. God was not joking or making blunt threats when he said he would visit the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation. This was his just and righteous way of dealing with man's rebellion. We can be sure that the things detected in our parents will eventually find a way of manifesting in our own lives. I know this to be all too true, much to my chagrin, for this law has been fulfilled on many occasions in my own life. Joseph was by no means perfect, even though there is very little in the Bible to say where he was at fault. I've listened to many stories and views concerning Joseph from Sunday school teachers, preachers in the pulpit, plus speakers at conferences, and most views sound very similar. However, I've been studying this man and his story for quite a long time, and another picture has emerged. We all see through a glass darkly, as Paul said in 1 Corinthians 3:12, which means that no one person can claim to have the whole truth. But if we all pool what we have seen through our dim glasses, we can piece the descriptions together and imagine a bigger, perhaps better picture of what we're looking at, even though we can't see it all with our own natural or spiritual eyes. I'm going to try to relate what I've seen in the hope that it may broaden your view a little on what took place in Joseph's life. But in order to do this, I will need to retrace his steps to see the traits of his forefathers, which have been passed down to him through DNA. And for this reason, this book will be about Joseph's forefathers, to show what Joseph had to overcome.